Right. So we have Brian Forster there saying that the only way that slabs could have made them marks were through, not through sand, not through sun, but through intense heat. Right? This observation deck here as a 19th century book. They knew the difference then between artificial granite, basalt, stone. They knew.
Level of, say, the Great Pyramid before the first blocks actually went down. Some say, and its surface.
Sorry.
A first layer composition is spread thereon, being taken from the melting pot in fluid or semi-fluid state to the thickness of about 1/4 of that of the intended. So 25 them into artificial granite or stone. I put one or more of these loaves again into the melting pot when they are perfectly melted. Add chat.
I really badly edited that, but this guy's got recipe.
I mean, the patent was dated March the 6th. Specification.
Patent doesn't mean anything, right? Patent is just when the corporations got on it. People used to keep technology secret, and they were the specialist at it, and so you go to them because they were the best at it. If everybody knew it, then it was open market, yeah? And the you get what I'm saying? Knowledge was power.
Enrolled September the 6th.
As soon as he started patenting it, that's when corporations formed.
It doesn't say which year. Now, just because it was printed in 1840 doesn't necessarily mean it was patented in that year. But let's, for the argument of this, just assume it was the same year, 1839, 1840. So he goes on to describe exactly how to create artificial granite, and he even gives the specifications. So now I leave this composition or mastic to stand for about 1 hour, and then withdraw it from the melting pot in the form of loaves. This means of wooden or other molds. So they're using wooden molds to bake these blocks of stone, marble, artificial. Well, in this case, it's artificial granite, and to convert them into artificial granite or stone. I put one or more of these loaves again into the melting pot when they are perfectly melted. Add well-picked oakum or any other suitable fibrous substance in the proportion of about 10 pounds to a ton of the other material. He goes on to show you the uses. For pavements, the ground having been duly prepared, a first layer composition is spread thereon, being taken.
Right, it finds its own level. I don't want to bore you. The point I'm getting to, remember the Brian Forster? Get this.
So they weren't hewn out of stone or transported as were, well, I'll point out some other columns that are quite famous that were neither transported anywhere.
Yeah, they're saying it took 500, 300 kilometres.
Artificial means. But museum disquamation took place over the whole surface. So in other words, it goes on and on. Others are...
Sorry, I missed that word.
Actions of British Museum. Latin disquamation years...
This is what's happening with the stones Brian's showing, right? They're not real stone, they're this stuff. Watch the peeling. He even said peeling, didn't he?
So we're back approximately 20 years when we're looking at this. So I just wanted to give you that cover so you got the date. But part and parcel of this is this here, which is on page 243, and I'm going to introduce many of you, no doubt, to a brand new word, and it's the word we're looking for, or the word I've got highlighted here, as you can see, is desquamation. Yes, desquamation. So desquamation, I'll tell you what that is in a second, but he talks, in fact, I'll tell you now so you know what I'm talking about when I read the text. Wikipedia, again, desquamation, nothing really fancy or anything. Desquamation, commonly called skin peeling, is the shedding of the outermost membrane or layer of tissue such as the skin. The term is from the Latin desquamare, meaning to scrape the scale off a fish. And there's a lovely picture of the skin peeling. So it's a bit like paint peeling, skin peeling. But in our example, we're going to talk about desquamation in the peeling of a very thin layer of the outer layers of the granite or the marble. But it only occurs in artificial marble and granite, obvious, of a very thin layer of the outer layers of the granite or the marble, but it only occurs in artificial marble and granite, obvious.
Granite, it's basalt, and the basalt is from at least 300 miles away. So we're going to see not only amazing craftsmanship, but the fact that much of the stone was moved from great distances. And the question is, how was that done? And since for most of their time, the dynastic people only had Bronze Age technology, how is it possible that they could carve into a much harder stone such as this basalt?
Ancient aliens, eh?
And so here I am pointing to the carve
Oh, another bit I need to show you.
of the exterior of the Great Pyramid, quite a mystery. Also, this is the floor on the outside of the Great Pyramid, and you can see that originally 2.5 million multi-ton blocks of lime
Right?
between 2500 BC and let's say the time of Christ. But some of this work would have been impossible to have been done by the dynastic people, starting with the Great Pyramid itself. 2.3 million to 2.5 million multi-ton blocks of limestone with a core of granite. The granite comes from Aswan, and the limestone is actually from the area. So according to conventional academics, the Great Pyramid was constructed over the course of 25 or maybe 30 years during the time of Khufu. And if that's true, that means that the blocks would have to be cut, moved, and set into place every 2 minutes. So that's clearly impossible.
That's
So
24/7.
obviously what were dynastic people, and then adopted by
So
them,
even
and
he's saying
renamed
it's
by
shit.
them.
It just doesn't do it, apparently. So let's just go back to the journal, and you can see here, I'm going to read a little bit for you so you can see for yourself. Right, so the paragraph I'm looking for is the one here, and it says here, in this case also, the disquamation and decomposition affects many successive lamina or layers, proceeding in some cases indeed even to the central point, so all the way in, or to the heart of the block. Whereas in the case of the schistose granite, in that of artificial columns, only one lamina, so a very thin skin, which
In
is what we're talking about with the
columns.
skin peeling, only one lamina or minute space
Watch
beneath
how
the
many
immediate
columns.
surface is affected. So in other words, artificial granite, not in all cases, but artificial stone tends to peel disquamation of the skin. And it goes on. It has already been stated that in the columns at the British Museum, disquamation took place over the whole surface, so have to produce. It could have been completed all round with a hollow cylinder. It's talking about those huge, I think there's 42 columns outside of the British Museum when it was built, and these columns, I mean, they look like they were obviously solid marble or granite columns. In fact, as he's put it here, they were moulds, so they weren't hewn out of stone or transported as were, well, I'll point out some other columns that are quite famous that were neither transported anywhere either. They were placed in situ with this artificial means. But the museum disquamation took place over the whole surface. So in other words, it goes on and on. Others are unquestionably the result of actions similar to those produce the disquamation in artificial blocks of granite. So he actually says it right there. It also applies to marble. Actually, before we get back to the episode, I found this one in AD 1856. The manufacture of artificial granite, but this is an improved recipe on the 1840 in the UK. This is from Canada, by the way. But what I found interesting about the fact that obviously they've improved the process, the improved mode of manufacturing artificial granite in various forms and painting or veneers. The same with marble as to present an exterior or marble and an interior of stone or granite. So with the great part about this for all you builders and DIYers out there is that we're talking about various forms, so that could be any shape, in other words, platings and veneers, marble veneers. I suspect that if any of you have visited these grand buildings or churches,
All the frescoes,
I mean, I've been to
it's
the
called
Vatican
fresco
maybe
work.
3-4 times, and given this in mind, then all of this wonderful marble that we see inside the basilica, I suspect, is entirely made up. In
It's
fact,
fresco
I know that
work.
huge column altar that you work and all the rest of it, it's all is made from this liquefied version and this veneer.
They're still making art today. But, like, I'll show you an example. See this here on Stolen History. Classic white marble structures were actually painted but lost colour over time. Which I can quite agree on with that.
This is Caesar Augustus. He was the first official emperor of the Roman Empire, and if you've ever had to study Roman history...
I don't want to show all vlog, but, you know.
Only because we've only seen them one way for centuries. To the Greeks...
I do quite agree though that I do think there was collude. That's something I agree with. But the post I'm trying to look for is showing the fisherman's net and such.
Proposed as different researchers and archaeologists studied the pyramid, but until today, no acceptable explanation has been given about why the Great Pyramid is built in
I'm
such
so
a
sick
way.
of recording when I'm not. I'm just showing this because you've got some good photographs of the place.
Understanding of engineering, astronomy, and our efforts to discover the planet theories as to what is going on, and it clearly adds even more depth and mystery to the greatest enigma presented to our civilization from the ancients.
Right, I'm sorry about the editing of this, but
Done this